Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of whatever we're going to end up calling this series. I'm Ben.
And I'm Joe.
And let's talk some magic. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the true cost of playing Magic, specifically Commander, because, well, Magic is one of the priciest games out there, and, well, it's near and dear to my heart, and I want more people to play, but there is a true monetary and then also non-monetary cost to playing the game, and we kind of want to discuss that. So, Joe, the recent sets that have come out, like, what is the general consensus in the Magic community about that?
From a lot of what I talk to everybody about, whether it's new, old, or people that used to play it, the problem right now seems to be a lot of the prices of each set is going up, while the amount of sets coming out each year is also increasing. So not only do you have an increase of cost, but you have an increase of amount of things that they want you to buy, and to keep up in the Magic world, you have to keep buying the new sets.
More or less. So we just kind of pulled this off of Amazon. So today's date, I'm sure that this is being released like within a week or two of when we shot this. So we checked out Amazon. So we had Lord of the Rings was the most recent standard legal set that came out. And just taking a quick look, a draft booster is $150 on Amazon. These are all rounded. I didn't feel like getting down to the nitty gritty, but a set booster is $170. And a collector's booster is $420. Now, I remember being able to buy a draft box of a standard legal set for around $100. Sometimes a little less if it wasn't a great set.
Sometimes
a little more if it was like really sought after. But you were looking at about $100, before taxes. But then the sticker shock really settled in when the Commander Masters came out. So we're looking at a draft box, $290. Okay, so that's almost $300. It basically is $300 after you get the taxes. So that's double the draft box of the previous set. And it's triple what you would normally get for a standard set. Now, granted, this is not standard legal. The draft environment, which I don't understand a Commander draft environment, but I guess some people want to do that.
I don't really understand how you do. I mean, I guess what I think would be the best way is essentially make it brawl. Mm-hmm. Where you do 60.
That probably would be
because at that point you're opening a whole box for 4 people to build a Commander deck on the spot.
and that to me just sounds like, I mean, maybe it's for other people, but like, that to me sounds
painstaking.
Brutal. It sounds grueling. It's like
I'm exhausted and mentally worn before the game even starts at that point.
I would think that just putting the deck together would be the amount of brain power I have available to play Commander.
Exactly.
So that's just a draft box. The set box, which is the one that's going to appeal to people, especially people who are already playing the game and just want to get stuff. The set is $360. And then the collector's one, now, that actually drops to $195, which is, different than what we've seen before, but that also is because there's a substantial reduction in the number of packs. I don't remember how many packs came in others. There's only 4 in this one.
4.
Yeah.
So you're buying 4 collector packs for $195. Normal collector booster boxes are 12.
Okay.
You get 12 packs of collectors, which collector boosters, obviously, you have the potential to pull the best of the cards. But for 4 packs, almost $200, that's a tough ask.
And I mean, in retail, like at our local game store, $65 for a pack. I mean,
yeah,
that's just crazy. And I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword though, because what they say is like, well, you're just getting premium cards. You're going to get better hits. You get more rares and that kind of stuff. But it's like, not all the value is in the rares. Like, there's a lot of value in commons, and like, granted, I don't want a bunch of draft chaff just sitting there. Like, that's just going to take up space. But like, there's a lot of commons and uncommons that I wouldn't mind pulling. Like, if I'm buying a box, if I'm buying packs, I'm hoping to pull those too.
Exactly. There's plenty of times that I've found in sets, I always call them the uncommon common cards. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's rarity is either a common or an uncommon. Take example from the Lord of the Rings set. You have Nazgul. Mm-hmm. Nazgul is kind of a special card, which is cool, but it's an uncommon.
Right.
I've opened a booster box and a chunk of packs or whatever, and I've pulled myself 2 of them and got 1 from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an uncommon. You should be pulling them all the time.
Yep.
They just don't come around, and they're already like a $13, $14 card for an uncommon card.
Yeah. And like, granted, the environment arena is very different. You get less cards than you would in a normal pack. But I opened probably a box worth of, more than a box worth of packs, and I didn't get my first Nazgul until like the other day.
Exactly.
And like I had already taken like my wild cards and made Nazgul because I wanted the deck. I'm like, I was hoping to pull one. Right. Pull a single one. I'm like, I'm just gonna get my 9.
Yep.
Then I pulled one, and I'm like, wait. So I have my 9, and now I finally pull one, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get a wild card for that or something? Like,
yeah.
So, all right. So there's a couple of things that WotC Wizards likes to say in response to these. Firstly, one of them is don't engage with all products. Like, engage with the ones that speak to you. But the problem with that is
they kind of, it's like handcuffing you. It's like, okay, you're telling me only buy the ones that speak to me, but then it's a set whether I like it or not. There's cards that are going to become staple cards for whatever format you might be playing, especially Commander, because being able to run one of your cards creates a lot of possibilities where it's not the idea of, well, I need this because I'm running 4 of it. Mm-hmm. It's I need it for this singular purpose, and if I don't get this card, now everybody else has something that I can't handle because I didn't adapt and get, whether it's a new mechanic, a specific creature that does something, you have to have answers for it. Right. A lot of the times those answers come from that set.
Right. And so it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of a BS response because they're, especially when it comes to Commander, they're shoving Commander cards into every single set.
Constantly now.
Because they want to sell to Commander players.
Right.
And, okay, so then you can kind of go, well, you can buy singles. Yeah, of course you can buy singles. And granted, when it comes to those times where like I don't end up pulling the commons or the uncommons, they're usually pretty easy. They don't usually fetch a price tag.
Yeah.
And even when they are good, a lot of times it's like you're going to be paying $4 bucks, maybe $5 for something that's just really, really good. Right. And that's usually only if it's good in other formats as well.
Exactly.
If it's good in standard, people want 4 of. Then if it's good in modern or legacy, and then that just keeps pushing it up there.
The more sets that it's useful in, the higher the cost of the card will end up being.
But at that point, it's fine. But like, for instance, you want the 1 ring.
Right.
Well, okay, if I want to buy a single of that, I'm looking at, I think the cheapest one was like, what, $50?
$50.
$50.
Like $49.99.
$50 to get 1 card. A piece of paper. Like, people say cardboard, and I feel like that obfuscates it just a little. It's paper. It's paper like this.
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper that I've scribbled on that I'm going to throw out later on today.
Layered paper.
And it's fine because there is a certain value because of the community, so you could potentially resell that. So it has that value, but when I'm looking at rent or I'm looking at food and I'm like, I really would like this card, but I'd also like to exist as a human being. So $50 is just not a thing. Now, you don't need every card. You don't need every card.
No.
But, I mean, that's not how this thing works. It works on a certain level of addiction. Now, there are some that are crazy, but like, if you're playing Magic, you like the game. There is a certain level of addiction that you're gonna have to want to play that game. And
even without an addictive personality, things that people enjoy are what they spend their time doing.
Right.
And if to spend time doing what you want to do, you have to spend money to do it. You usually will spend that money to do it.
Exactly, because even free things cost money. If you want to go somewhere that's free, you got to spend money on gas to get there. Exactly. Plus whatever vehicle or things that go along with that.
Right.
All right. So the cost of Magic is going up, and anybody can say like inflation. Okay. And we won't need to get into the economics of it, but like people's monetary income is not pacing up with
the cost of living and the cost of just things in general. Not even just the cost of living. Everything is going up. Things that are considered your luxury, your not necessity parts of life are continuing to go up with the cost of living. And then the argument can be, well, you need to spend money on the things that matter. That are really important, like, rent and food and that kind of stuff. But it's like, okay,
but I don't want to just survive. I don't want my life to be about going to work to make money to pay so that I can continue to go to work.
Like it's a vicious cycle that can put you in a bad place. So whatever enjoyment it is you have in life, you try to get that extra towards it. Magic is great when I love it because you're able to bring people together, whether they're friends or new people you're playing against.
And that's why Commander is the most popular format, because it is a gathering of people. But, with this price tag, and I think a big part for me is that I think it helps, it restricts, they want to try and sell to new players. Like, you have these Universes Beyond and all these other kind of things, but if you're just coming into Magic for the first time and you see that a Commander pre-con, which is another way that you can go, you're like, okay, you want to play Commander? Yep. You don't need to buy packs and stuff, because that's just random. You're going to have to buy a lot of packs to put together a deck, especially a singleton format. So you buy a pre-con. Pre-cons used to be $30, $40. And now the Lord of the Rings ones are sitting at $60, and every single one, if you're lucky, all the ones that come out from Commander Masters are $80, and a lot of those are going up because this card is only in this box, so I got it. And
the 5 cards printed in a pre-con that are specifically made from that pre-con will drive the price of that pre-con up because of that.
And I'm just sitting there, I'm trying to think from a perspective of a brand new player, because I've been playing for a really long time. And so I don't need to buy a pre-con. I might want to, but I don't need to. I have plenty of decks.
For sure.
But I'm trying to think of trying to get into this game and looking at $60 to $80 just to enter. And granted, the decks are getting better, but I think it's a double-edged sword. And I want to bridge that topic a little later in this episode. But just looking at that, if I walk into a store and you're like, okay, you want to start playing Commander, you got to spend $60 or $80. Okay, well, if I'm just starting playing Commander, maybe I have one friend. But there's a pretty good chance that I just got enticed by meeting somebody who played, or some kind of minimum entry point where I'm not actually able to play, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to spend $60, $80 and then hope that I can play against some people.
That's the thing. It's hard. My experience playing for almost 5 years now. I had the problem a lot, especially before Arena was on mobile, because when I started, it hadn't gotten mobile yet. Mm-hmm. It was just on PC. Now I have a laptop now, able to play it either way, but a lot of people don't have computers, so mobile was a great way to get into Magic, because I bought my first Planeswalker deck, played with some friends, had a grand old time, started to build up a collection where I had a couple boxes, just the dice boxes where they used to be 10 packs, which it was $40 for 10 packs. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So get a few of those, finally put my own first deck together. And then I remember waiting 2 weeks with a deck built, just itching to play it. Yeah. Because I didn't have a physical person right next to me that I was able to play it with.
So that means if you want to play Commander and you don't have a play group and you don't necessarily have an LGS, or it's not as accessible as you'd like, you're incentivized to try and get your friends to play. So if you have to start from scratch with a group of 4 friends, that means combined you're looking at spending $240 to $320 between the 4 of you
just on the deck,
just to start. Okay. Yep. Now, granted, I think the pre-cons are getting a lot better, but
for sure,
that comes to a second cost of playing Magic that I don't think people really kind of think about, is now you have to spend time. And not just playing the game, because obviously you're going to spend time playing the game, but you've got to learn how to play the game. And not just learn how to play, but then also spend enough time to learn not just the base mechanics, but then actually how to play. Like when I go to a table, I'm not thinking about what does Trample do or what does First Strike do. I'm like, okay, what colors are they playing? Okay, what capabilities does that color have? How many lands do they have open? All right, what did they do in that? Oh, they just did that. Okay, that means, and then all the extra things that a seasoned player has the ability to think about because they've had that time. A new player coming in, you're like, oh, I don't even understand. I didn't realize that was a thing that could happen.
Exactly. The levels of complexity can make starting Magic without somebody that knows what they're doing is very hard.
Yeah.
Had I not had a group of people that already had been playing, there's a lot of things that I probably would have done wrong for a very long time.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand that that's how the mechanic actually works.
And even trying to look it up online, that's not necessarily going to clarify things because
right.
Not understanding all the rule sets and nothing. Like I teach people how to play Commander from nothing. Like they don't know anything about the game, and you're like, okay, I got to start at the base level, but no one's playing with Colossal Dreadmaw and a whole bunch of vanilla creatures, so you can just focus on like the core mechanics. It's like they're buying the new precons, which means all those layers are right there.
Right, and
I mean, you were just talking about the blue-green deck and all that voting stuff.
That got confusing for a table of people that are what I would consider mostly veteran. Mm-hmm. That started adding that monkey wrench that was thrown in, where it's like having to process one player's turn each rotation is going to be a 4 or 5 step voting process, essentially. Right. I've never played a game of Magic that's ever done that before. So getting into the mindset of somebody who that's their first ever game of Magic, and now they're thinking that I have to do votes and this and that and all these weird things that they're really only going to ever do if they play that specific deck.
Right.
Yep.
And like, it makes me feel like, I remember watching something, Mark Rosewater was talking about it, maybe I read an article, but like they were talking about cognitive load. And I thought it was a really eye-opening, read or watch. And it's something I kind of inherently understood, but like sometimes inherently understanding something or playing around with in your head, it's a little different once you actually put it out in the world. You start thinking about it a little bit differently.
Exactly.
I remember there was 2 decks that came out. It was Firecrag.
Okay.
And I think it was blue-green, or it was Horrors or something. And it was Mill. I remember Mill. And I remember somebody had come in and they were playing the Firecrag deck, and I'm like, this is not new player friendly. Like, this is a very unfriendly deck to a new player. There's so much stuff for you to think of. Like, there was Goad in that deck and all these other mechanics, and I'm like, this is not player friendly.
No.
And so that's actually
even a precon, which is kind of meant to get somebody in with that doesn't have a commander deck, is even at that level is confusing.
And I think that's where the price points of $60 to $80 isn't justified for what the product is supposed to be.
Right. It shouldn't be an $80 commander deck that does all this crazy stuff. It should be a base level commander deck that introduces you to playing commander.
Now, I know a lot of people are like, put reprints, like Dockside Extortion is one of the biggest ones. You could reprint that into, a precon. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea, because then that precon automatically becomes sought after and everybody wants it. And then it bars new players from getting in because all the old players are trying to get for the one card. So I don't necessarily think that's a great place for those kind of reprints, but I do think it's a good place for solid cards that aren't super expensive to get reprinted in there so that other players have access to it.
For sure.
Thinking about how much better the newer precons are, that's from a perspective of a seasoned player. I like it because, granted, I have 3 of the precons from Lord of the Rings, and there were things that I desperately want to change. I'm holding them because I have a tendency to make decks that are way stronger than I even intend them to be, even if I'm trying to make a weak deck. Yeah. And so I kept these precons. I'm like, no one can fault me for however powerful this is.
I didn't build it.
I didn't make it. It's not my fault.
Exactly.
Even if I remember this deck, because I played the Jeskai one. Okay. And I've won the 3 times that I played. Granted, I didn't play against any like really high level decks. Right. But I kept winning, and I'm like, I didn't do it. I'm just playing the cards in my hand.
Exactly. Wizards of the Coast built this for me. I'm sorry. You can air your grievances with them.
And even through that process, I'm looking at cards. I'm like, I get rid of that one. I get rid of that one. But they're still fine enough.
Exactly. I had a precon. The one that really stood out to me that I purchased was an Izzet Commander precon from Strixhaven. And with that one, halfway into your game, every single turn you take turns into 50, 60 actions. It's Izzet, it's combo, it's doubling spells, all sorts of things. and it turned into every time you cast a spell, or every time you cast an instant or sorcery, 15 different things on my board trigger. Mm-hmm. Creating a token of this, copying the effect, creating another one of these, doing this, doing that, doing this. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there going, I don't even want to play this anymore because every turn I feel like I'm taking a test on my turn because I have to make sure I did everything right. So one, I'm not missing things that I did, and two, not doing things wrong and essentially unintentionally cheating. Right. Because you're doing your actions wrong, and all of a sudden I made 15 more tokens than I'm supposed to.
Right. And then also recognizing that I'm playing solitaire for a minute.
Exactly.
One of my favorite decks, which I don't play that often because it is relatively powerful, it has been tuned over the last few years to be very on point when like new cards that I'm interested in putting in the deck come out. It's a struggle because there's not a single weak card in that deck. Everything pulls its weight. But it's a kind of deck where if I get to a point like I'm doing a lot of different. I have lots of triggers, lots of things going on.
Right.
I don't mind because it's few and far between. Like I said, I don't play that deck that often, and it's also a deck that it has a reputation in my play circles. If I pull that deck out, everybody knows what's happening.
Right. You become the target before anybody's even drawn their hand because of past experiences.
Oh, right. They know. They're like, no. If I let you get even an inch, it's going to become a mile.
Right.
But coming back to the pre-cons, so I think that them being better is actually a double-edged sword because it justifies that higher price point. It's like, oh, it's a better deck. It's more cohesive. Sure. What I think it does is it also does a disservice to the new player, not just in the price point, but like if you have a deck that's relatively cohesive, why would I upgrade it?
Why would I change anything? Why would I want to go buy other cards for it? It's won me games and I just started playing kind of thing.
Right. And it kind of makes me think back to the decks where you'd have like kind of 2 or even 2.5-ish directions where you'd have cards that synergize with some but not with others. And you're like, oh, this is a bad deck because it doesn't synergize that well. But now that I'm seeing what's taking place in the pre-cons, I'm like, I actually kind of appreciate that from the standpoint of like, well, if your deck isn't super cohesive, like it functions well enough, but it's not super cohesive, it incentivizes you to pick a direction and start buying cards.
Really lean into that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if I bought it for 30 or 40 and then I spend another 20 or 30 or even 40 on those upgrades, then I'm spending $80, but I get to do it. And I get to have fun, like, tinkering with my deck.
The problem is with doing that, the card shop makes some money now, Wizards of the Coast.
True. But Wizards of the Coast makes money because the card shop is selling more stuff. So
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's a weird concept that,
until Wizards start selling direct, which they're basically trying to do.
Which, I mean, at that point, there's both good and bad because they can set straight price points but it can be...
If they did, that would be great. But they got rid of MSRP so they can sell it for as much as they can.
Exactly. I was going to say, I'm like, it can be they set the price, not the consumers. But the problem is on the same note, they set the price, not the consumers.
Yeah.
They get to decide, well, this mythic rare is now worth $155 because we said so. Whether it's good or not. That's the...
I mean, yeah, in an indirect way, when you put high power cards into a deck and you sell it for a high price, and most of the other cards, we don't pay attention to the secondary market they claim, but how do you know what cards are going to be good? How do you know how to price them and make a premium product? Like, it's BS that they don't pay attention to the secondary market. That's just a legal loophole that they go through. But when you put just a few cards that are going to end up having that super high price point. Like I remember when Jewel Lotus ate up such a substantial amount of what that set cost. Right. And I can't remember what one. There was one set that I remember like almost all the cards were dirt cheap because it was just 1 or 2 cards. I think it might have been Ren's. No, that can't be right. Was it Ren 6?
Might have. That would make sense. I mean, I think just recently that card went down to under 100.
I just remember that there was some sets that came out that there was just a few cards that were like holding that price point, and everything else was just crap cheaper, which is fine. Like if you're the kind of person that can buy singles,
Sure.
because that's all you need, then that actually benefits you. If there's a
Right.
few cards like, okay, I can't get that card.
Right.
I
I can get the few ones that I need from the set.
and it won't cost me an arm and a leg.
Exactly.
I did end up, I buy boxes. I used to buy boxes a lot. I had the income. And I think it's just fun because of another cost that kind of comes with the fact that, like, I mean, Magic is kind of addicting, at least on a certain level.
It does give you that idea. It's like scratching a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
It's something, it triggers something in your brain that's like, oh, I like the idea that I could get something really good.
Right. And I mean, if you buy a box, that moderates it. You know,
Right.
You might not get as much value as, say, the person next to you. Or you might get more than the other person next to you, but it's going to kind of be, there's going to be an average where it's not going to go too far out of that. But if I buy a pack, and if I pay $65 for a pack, and I pull all bulk rares, I just got, like, what? I got $5 worth of value that I probably can't even get. Like, if I can buy that card, those cards for $5, I can't sell them for $5.
No, because the only way you're ever going to get the worth of a card is by individually selling it to another player.
Right.
By yourself.
Yep.
That's the only way. It's like my buddy at one point, the price changes all the time. He had pulled the foil Phyrexian text Vorinclex Monstrous Raider.
Mm-hmm.
When that set first came out, that version was marked on TCG for like $400. Mm-hmm. The only way he was even going to come close to making $400 was to sell it by himself, whether through a site or whatever, but him individually selling it to another buyer.
Right. Somebody else who's willing to pay the full price.
You walk into a card shop, they're going to go, I'll give you $120 for that.
Yeah.
Card.
50% is like a good, it's good.
It's good. And if you're willing to take store credit, you'll get a little more.
Yep. You'll get a little more. And
because at that point, you're turning around and spending all that money right back at that store.
And I feel like the higher it goes, if it's not directly sought after, like if it's holding a high price point because it is sought after, but it's not like if it's something in standard where people want it now,
right.
It's going to command a higher price point, and they're going to give you less for it because, I mean, why wouldn't they?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
It's. Am I right in that? Is my logic correct? I mean, I guess. Might make sense to give you more money because they want to keep those cards cycling. I don't know.
I think at that point really depends on the card.
Right.
Because if it's something they know that the price is continuing to go up, they might be willing at the time to offer more, knowing that, okay, well, it's worth this currently. It's going to be worth in 3 days. It's going to be worth $30 more. We can give you more. But again, you're at that point hoping for the card shop to be nice.
Right.
Because they have no legal or, I guess, don't really have to have a moral reason to give you that extra bit because technically they're not doing anything wrong based off that current price point because that's how the market works.
They're essentially taking on the risk because, who's
to say the next day that card doesn't drop $50.
Right. I had a bunch of I had a bunch of Mishra baubles. I missed the bubble when they were $50 a piece because I bought a bunch of Cold Snap Edge. I just even though I've been playing since Ice Age, I went through periods of just collecting realistically.
Right.
I didn't even play because I didn't like 60 card formats.
Yeah.
Commander
didn't come around until after 2010 sometime?
Yeah, I missed when it first came in. It was only like 5 years ago, give or take, that I started playing Commander when I realized that was the thing. And I'm like, oh, this is Magic I could enjoy.
Right.
Kind of lost where I was there.
Oh, we were going on with you were talking about the card. You missed the bubble on when it was.
Oh, Mishra's Bobble. Yeah.
Yep.
But it did plummet after because people opened up the set.
Yeah.
Like once that happened, people opened up the set, and so the price point went down. But it was still like I think it was like sub 10, but it was like around there.
Right.
So I held on to it because I'm like, oh yeah, I got this card.
Yeah.
I got rid of a couple because I had quite a few. It was like
Right.
It's like an uncommon card.
Yeah.
And then just before it got reprinted, I was like, you know what? Let me get rid of some of these. Like a couple more. I only need like one or two. It's not like I use it all the time. And I missed it. And I didn't But if I had sold those to the card shop,
Right.
they would have immediately lost a whole bunch of money because I had like 5 or 6 of them that I was ready to trade in. I would have gotten maybe $3 or $4 or $5 of trade-in value, and then they would have been able to sell them for a best 25 cents.
Right.
So they take on that risk. So I definitely understand why, they're going to give you, especially depending on the card. Like if it's something they can flip pretty easily, maybe they'll give you more. If it's something that's going to sit in their case for a couple months and might devalue over that time, I mean, especially with the volatility of the reprints, you don't know what's getting reprinted. I mean, they have doubling season in the Commanders Masters,
right, which
and
did just put the price of doubling season down.
And now they're putting it in Wilds of Eldraine.
So all of a sudden it's going to be flooding the market again. A card that was very sought after because of its ability, and it's not around a lot. Now is going to, I feel like it's going to lessen the exclusivity of being like, I have doubling season.
Right. Which, that's something I go back and forth because, like, I kind of like, sometimes I like the idea that certain cards are a little bit more exclusive.
For sure.
And I think that's coming from being an older player, having a big collection, but I don't have, like, even though I started back in Ice Age, I don't have any of those kind of cards from, like, I don't have, like, Antiquities or Arabian Nights or any of those where it's, like, a super valuable card. I didn't get any of those kind of things. So, like, my valuable card are my doubling seasons. And granted, I'm not too worried about doubling seasons. First of all, there's almost no chance I'm ever going to sell my cards because I like to play with them. I just like them having value. And I like that it's a little bit more restricted. Like, a new player won't just have a doubling season.
Exactly.
It makes me feel like cool kind of a thing.
Oh,
but that doesn't mean I don't want them to have access to it at all.
Exactly.
And I know that, like, they're coming out with a lot of premium versions of it. So, the base price of the card coming down is definitely a good thing. If the premium ones are the ones that hold those high price points, I'm fine with that because I do think that cards should be more accessible. They're game pieces. I want people to play the game.
Exactly.
But what disappoints me in that is Parallel Lives and Anointed Procession, which cost less. And a lot of times your deck doesn't need doubling season. It needs I can't think of the other one, the one that just doubles +1/+1 counters, which only is a 3-drop. That also hasn't been reprinted as far as I know.
Yeah.
Those 3 cards should have been reprinted. Granted, it's 3 slots versus 1 slot, but those 3 cards should have been reprinted over doubling season because a lot of decks don't need doubling season. They need one side of that effect.
Right.
And for cheaper, it's better.
Exactly.
Please reprint it. Please reprint those cards. I want to get another Anointed Procession. I want to get a Parallel Lives in general.
I actually just bought Anointed Procession this week.
I
actually just bought Anointed Procession, Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, and Primal Vigor this week.
So,
yeah.
I mean, if they're not, especially if we already have spoilers for Wilds of Eldraine, and the new set just came out.
Yeah.
I remember when it used to be like a month or even 2 months. That. And it
now
actually felt good.
You can basically pick out every card you're looking for on Card Kingdom 2 months before the set comes out. Looking at the pre-order singles.
I don't even look at spoilers anymore because I'm already starting to upgrade my decks before I've even played the upgraded version of the deck I have. It's like, that card's gonna come out. I definitely want to put that card in there.
Right. Going right into the cost of playing is that constant need to buy more cards to update it to make your deck better, to do the same thing a couple months later.
It's just, going back to the addictive thing, it's like, first of all,
right,
you like playing a game. There is a certain level of addiction. Like, not to, kind of taking away the idea that most people have of, like, addiction.
Right.
It's like, I have an addiction to Magic. It's not unhealthy. I don't need to spend money. I'm not like, oh my god, I have to spend money.
Exactly.
I can resist that.
Right.
But there are, like, that's the thing, is I want to buy cards because I like playing the game and I want to play, I like cracking packs. It's like a little Christmas.
It is.
Just open those packs up.
The idea, you don't know what you're going to get, and there's always that possibility that pack's got that amazing card you're looking for.
I pulled a Jewel Lotus. I would not buy a Jewel Lotus. I would never have spent the $100 that it is to get just the base level, but I cracked one. It's like, this is awesome, and I put it in the deck. That's cool. It took me forever to buy certain cards. I was waiting for them to drop down $20 because to me, that's the top of the end for what I think a card should cost. Maybe with inflation that might like venture up to $25, $30. But in my mind, that's the most I ever want to pay for a piece of paper. And the difference between the price of Colossal Dreadnought and Jeweled Lotus is the CMYK variance of the particular dots on that particular card. And that just seems, when you put it like that, it just seems ridiculous because it does not cost more to print a common than it costs to print a rare.
Yeah.
Barring foils and all the special whatever, blah, 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 blah. Sure. But, like, it's paper.
It is.
And I just want to play the game, and I'm hoping that, I mean, I know the Wizards just wants to make money. Hasbro.
And that's the thing, is this has all happened since Wizards was acquired by Hasbro. Because when I started, because that's just been a couple years, right? Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, I'm not 100% sure when Hasbro acquired these.
I want to say it was just within a few years. Because I remember when I started playing, we had Thrones, and then it went to, I think it was Theros, I think was right after that, Beyond Death, and then it was like Ikoria and whatever. And it was a few sets that came out from the time I started playing till like the next year. And then I remember all of a sudden it was really quickly where you're looking at 7 sets for a year. And then
99.
Hasbro bought them in 99. So they've had them. Oh, okay.
But you know what? It's probably that it wasn't until relatively recently that they actually saw it as something of value.
Right. Well, realizing, and I guess the Magic community kind of opened themselves up to it because of the way the culture of, and it's not even just Magic players, but kind of the nerd culture of gamers, whether it's a PC, console, board games, action, live action role playing, all those kind of games. Those people usually have similar similar ways of acquiring the things that they're into, where something you have the ability to pay for it. Like being an adult and having a hobby, that's what you spend your money on. So your hobby being Magic, you buy everything that comes out, and then Wizards and Hasbro go, oh, well, they bought 6. It's like, okay, so this year we did 4 sets. We did great numbers. Everybody bought all those sets. The next year, we made 6 sets. Everybody still bought them. We still made great numbers. Now we're going to make 12 sets, and everybody keeps buying. Stores, Cooper's Cave is still sold out of certain sets. Within a month, all of a sudden you can't buy that set other than some packs.
I don't necessarily think that that's entirely, like, I don't want to discount that notion, but I also think that there is the financial side, the investment side that I think also, and I don't want to get too deep into that because that's a whole topic in itself, but, you're selling to the whales, but it's like those whales are looking to flip that product later on. They're hoping to buy it and then flip it later for a profit. And so, that means as a player, you're incentivized to get it now. Because if it's going up later, that means I'm paying more for it later.
Exactly.
So, that's this whole thing. So, the last thing I kind of want to and I think we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but and I think this comes to solutions. Like, how do you cope with the price of Magic? And I was thinking about that on the way over here to record this, because I've been playing since Ice Age. I have a huge collection. As a matter of fact, I have shed a large portion of my collection. Most of it was just draft chaff, just stuff that was sitting in boxes that I was never going to use.
Jank that's 20 years old, that's probably it's not even useful anymore.
Right. I mean, some of it was, because I did buy boxes, periodically, so I had stuff, but I only need one-offs, or depending on how ubiquitous it is, I might just need a bunch of them, but usually those are commons or uncommons. Yeah. And so I might even have 2 or 3 of a certain rare that it's valuable. It's why would I keep that? I only need one of them, maybe 2 of them, depending on how many decks to go in. Right. There's always proxying. So as an older player, I have a collection. I have a bunch of decks. I have 30 plus decks that are ready to go of varying power levels. And with the cost of Magic rising, I mean, all I have to do is just reduce my focus on how many decks I even consider when it comes time to upgrade or play or consider. Yeah. So I could, I have my little box of 10 decks, but I don't even need to focus on those. And some of them can stay. They might as well. Might as well keep them at a lower power level just so I have those. Yeah. So it's really easy for me as an older player with a huge collection to I can just shrink my participation in buying new cards,
Right.
and I'm still going to be fine.
Yeah.
As a more recent, but still like having played for a few years,
Right.
What do you think is like a good strategy in terms of that, or what is your mindset with the rising cost of Magic?
I do kind of want to follow on what you were just saying, where kind of reducing what you're getting from Wizards in terms of how much you want to focus on like variety of cards.
Mm-hmm.
If you can spend some money, because to play, unless you're going to play with what you have and nothing more,
mm-hmm.
you're obviously going to have to spend money to continue to play and keep up. But instead of wanting a variety of everything from each set, maybe if you can, if it's something that still keeps the game fun for you and makes it interesting enough to keep playing, you focus on, you got one commander deck. Every time a set comes out, you see cards from that set. Those are the only ones you get, and you supplement them into your current commander deck, and you just kind of work like that. For me specifically, I have an issue with that. I can't play the same deck for too long. I get very bored. I don't want to play anymore because I'm like, well, this is every time I play, it's the same thing. I do it in Arena. I'll play a deck for 5 games, then I'm like, I'm going to build a new deck because I need something else.
Right.
So that becomes an issue when all of a sudden you're like, all right, I've got a commander deck that even at a low end of a new player, like say you've got a commander deck worth $150. Now all of a sudden, okay, I've got a green and blue Simic commander deck. Oh, wow, that black and white deck was really cool. I want to do something like that.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden you have to do a whole nother deck. And if you don't have a library of cards to pull from, you're going out to get those cards to do this deck. Someone like you, even someone like me who's been playing for 4 years. If I really want, I can rip through everything I've got and I can build a pretty damn good commander deck of any color.
Oh yeah.
If I really just pull go through all the cards and find everything I need, sure.
Yeah.
Somebody that's brand new at it, that's bought maybe a pre-con and some, say, 20 packs in total, they're not going to be able to just throw a commander deck together.
Right. And
yeah, I mean, yes, you could, but it's not going to work.
Right. And I've seen those decks.
Right. You got a $20 value commander deck. It's not going to do much.
And that's fine if you're playing against other people who have those decks. But
for sure.
Unless you have a friend group who's at the same exact level as you got to go to the LGS. And Rule 0 only goes so far. Like, especially if you're in a situation where you only have 1 or 2 decks.
Right.
If one of your decks is just a monster.
Yeah.
And then you sit down with somebody who's got like, oh, I'm going to like timmy my way through this. It's like, well, what are you going to do? I have my monster and my other monster versus your little kitten. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's not much you can do. Like, you can go ahead and Rule 0. It's like, I can't do anything to my deck right here, right now.
Right.
Which is what I think is like, you know, coming to like a new player, somebody who's coming into how can they deal with the cost of Magic? And I think they're somewhat limited because, yeah, you can buy a pre-con. And then maybe that's it. Maybe that's all you have to spend. Maybe you're satisfied with your pre-con, and that's great. But like you're saying, that variety. If you have time to play and you keep going and you keep playing, you're eventually going to get bored of your deck, or you're just not even necessarily being bored of your deck, but just trying different strategies, just playing a different thing.
Or the other end of it, other people are going to get bored with your deck. Other people aren't going to want to play with you anymore because it's like, well, you just do the same thing every time you show up. We're cool.
I mean, and granted, that is on them. Like if you're limited and you only have one deck, and other people are getting irritated, it's like, that's not your fault.
Yeah, and most of the time, you're never going to have somebody tell you, no, you can't play because you only have one deck. But that feeling might be there at the table of like, all right, yep, seen this 1,000 times, like, cool.
Right. Especially if you end up as a new player, somebody convinces you to make a monster, and then all you have is one.
My first commander deck was a Nicol Bolas deck. And I'm lucky to say my first homemade commander deck, at least for the level I was playing at, was a monster. And I built it myself. But I'm one that had previous gaming, like card gaming knowledge. Mm-hmm. So I was able to carry a lot over. Brand new players can't necessarily do that on their own.
Right. And I mean, I doubt that a brand new player would be able to pilot a monster to its full effectiveness. But some decks, they just
pilot themselves.
You put together an Urza deck. Just put cards. You don't even have to pay. Just grab a bunch of blue cards and shove them in there, and you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean, not literally, but so I would say, like, pulling back to the new players and how can you deal with this?
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this beforehand, and this isn't exactly the same, but I think play Arena.
Yeah, that's your best option.
Play if you don't know how to play and you want to get into the game. Even if you're interested in Commander, play Arena. Arena is free. Yes, they incentivize you to pay. I've been playing Arena for a little while, just to kind of satiate, because sometimes I go in to play Commander and I just don't have fun because there's a variety of reasons why I might not have fun playing Commander on a particular day.
Yeah.
But Arena is nice because
rip through 5 games, get an itch out of wanting to, like, I want to play this style deck today.
Right.
But I didn't get to do what I wanted at Commander tonight. So you supplement that kind of good part of playing Magic with a few games on Arena.
And like you're saying, you can just, especially because it's not like, I love the personal interaction and contact you have playing the game Commander, but just being able to hop on Arena and just being able to play a deck, especially when, first of all, you can't see them. If their feelings are hurt, you don't know that. And secondly, the concept of competitive is like, I'm trying to kill you. There is no politics. There is no trying to get around or anything like that. It's just, I'm trying to kill you.
Yeah.
We're both in the same thing here.
No emotions can change a decision of what you're going to do because of the look on somebody's face.
Right. Everybody's trying to 2 for 1. Everybody's trying to 2 for 1 so they gain that advantage so they can win the game. Mm-hmm. And when the game's over, you can just, especially not being in paper, like you're saying, just grab a new deck. It doesn't even have to be good because I'm not wasting my time as long as I'm having fun.
Sure.
So playing Arena and not spending any money to kind of get an idea of playing these cards, getting a base level of the rules to understand that, it's a great way to enter in there, not spending any money. And then if you really like it and you want to play Arena, like I would have only spent $20 because I looked at like the season and like the rewards and I was
Mastery,
like, and I'm like, I used to spend $15 on WoW every month, $20 to play over the 8 weeks that this is. I'm like, that's fine. And then they gave me 2 deals and I'm like,
of course,
I'm spending $40 because I'm like, all right, fine.
The way I look at the Mastery is, all right, I was gonna spend X amount of dollars on physical Magic cards this month. Mm-hmm. All right, I'll take out $20.
Right.
And buy the Mastery. Playing Arena, it does give you value, a good amount of value to get those Masteries. Mm-hmm. Between the packs and all the just gold and whatever from playing through that Mastery pass is beneficial as a new player.
Right.
It's a hard time with Arena as a new player. Luckily, it's free. If you don't want to spend money, you don't have to.
Right.
You're just might have a slow go on getting a big collection.
Right.
You might be playing the pre-built decks that they just give you when you beat the color challenges.
Yeah. And to be honest, like,
they're not bad decks though.
No, I ended up playing the Ninja one, and granted, I modified that thing, but
for sure,
like, if I just wanted to start
as a backbone, it's a good deck.
Yeah, if I wanted to just start winning, that's a deck I would go to.
Right,
it's not guaranteed to win because that's just the nature of Magic. But I thought that was pretty solid. But also, as an older player, I have a better idea of like what things like. They had one that gave treasure tokens, and I kept it in there for a while, and I was like, I need like 4 mana to run this whole deck. 5 is like supreme, so I don't need these treasure tokens.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting rid of that, but like, so new player, and then also you get exposed to the new cards and the new mechanics, and that way you have an environment where you're not pressured because you're not sitting there with 3 other people waiting for you to understand what's going on and trying to explain it to you. And then just because you got explained to it and you understand it this time doesn't mean by the time it comes around again that you're gonna wait, what was that again?
Exactly.
So I think playing Arena is great. When it does get to the point of spending money, a pre-con is a great way to go just because that's the cost that you have to incur. As long as you don't worry about upgrading or anything like that, that's a cost that you incur outside of getting sleeves because you pretty much have to have sleeves. Especially if you're spending $80 on your cards, you probably want to protect them. That's another probably $20, depending on where you are. Getting your outer sleeves is usually 12 to 15, and I recommend doing double sleeving because all 4 of my original doubling seasons, I just had them in sleeves. They're all marred at the top. because little bits of grit and grain get in there and that.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the value because I'm never going to sell them.
Right,
but if I were
still,
to, that detracts from the value.
But now they've actually, I want to say it's Dragon Shield made it so they made a thinner inner, you can triple sleeve now.
Yeah, triple sleeve, and that's a little...
Yeah, it's like putting it in the one direction, putting it in another direction, then putting it in the final sleeve.
I guess I could see, like, if I had a supremely valuable card...
Sure,
and I wanted to play that, like, maybe that particular... But I'd be more prone to proxying something like that. If I felt
at that point, I'm not worried about stuff affecting the card from getting in the sleeve or whatever. I'm worried myself about bending the card. Sleeve does not... Right.
Yeah.
A sleeve does not stop any of that.
Nope.
You all of a sudden you go to pick it up or do something and you bend that card in half.
Oh, people who play with those metal D&D dice, like yeah, they're cool. Keep them away from a Magic card.
Yes.
Like, if you want
a dice, even the regular plastic life counters, if you go to like roll them for something and it hits your card, that point that the dice hits your card will leave a little dent.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and getting a pre-con, it'd be really great if you can find a friend or you can find an LGS. Like I said, at our local game store, I do beginner's commander kind of course. I let everybody know in the advertisement that, like, if it's your first time coming in, I'll let you borrow one of my decks. I have a bunch of decks ready to go so that you can play. Because I don't think that a person should have to spend money to find out if they want to play Magic. Like, that's ridiculous. That's too much money to go, maybe I want to play this, and then you play it and you're like, oh, I don't really want this. And, like, yeah, you can technically sell your cards, but that's a hassle. Nobody's going to bother to do that. It's going to sit in your... Right. It's just going to sit and collect dust, and you're throwing it away at some point. So if you can find a way to engage with Magic for free when you're first starting to find out if you like it, definitely take those options. Sure. But once you've made that leap, go to getting a pre-con. I mean, I know I've said a couple of things about that, but that's like having a deck that's ready to go, that you don't have to do anything.
That's your go-to.
The end, and that's the end. Go to that. And then get a play group. Find a play group, because that's, like, you're going to learn about more cards that you're never going to see even on Arena.
Yeah.
You're going to find out how to play those cards, because that's one of the biggest things. That's another cost, is that cost of, like, the experience of understanding, like, you know, when I sit down and I play against somebody who's playing Orzhov, I know there's no counter. Well, not no, but I know I'm not going to have to worry about counter stuff.
Yes, it's not necessarily about the countering itself. It's you physically coming up with a solution to counter their mechanic, not an actual counter spell kind of situation.
But I know that generally I'm probably going to be able to play my cards and not
have to worry about
until they come around and untap and then they exile all my stuff. That's what I do with my Orzhov deck.
You at least got to play them though.
Exactly. There is something inherently less satisfying about having it countered than playing it and then immediately having it removed. It's like, at least it hit the board.
Right. So with what you were saying too, I think as Magic players that have enough of a collection where you have extra decks, that is something I think where if you are trying to get more people to play, be that facilitator of that first experience. I do it all the time when on my break at work. I will sit there because I can't just sit there and have conversation with people a lot of the times. I have to be doing something with my hands. Mm-hmm. So I will play Arena on my phone while just sitting at lunch and talking to people. And I've had plenty of times where people start watching what I'm doing and being like, what are you playing? Mm-hmm. And I explain the whole thing. They're like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And I start off with it's a free app you can download, you can start playing it, and it'll teach you how to play. And then anytime the conversation gets beyond that, I always offer the choice of, you can come over to my house and use my cards, and I will teach you how to play.
Yep.
I will give you that ability where you can pick the style that you want to play, and we can go back and forth until you get the concept of how this works, and we can keep going from there. And if you don't enjoy it, you didn't spend any money to play. You used something I already had.
And if you are a seasoned player that has a big back collection of stuff that you're realistically just never going to use, give those cards away. I've done it. It's
give a friend a deck that's already built and say, hey, you have this to play with whenever you want now.
It's really satisfying. Like, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a deck. I've just gone through a bunch of my stuff and gone, yeah, I'll give them one of these, and I'll give them a couple of these, and I just happen to have that.
Almost like a friendly starter box.
Exactly.
I gave you, say you go through your cards and pull out 50 commons, 50 uncommons, and 20 rares, and 10 mythics that are just sitting in a box for 15 years. And you go, here you go.
I'm past the point of using mortifies and putrefies. You can have them.
Exactly.
There's better versions of that, but they will work and they will function for what they're going to do. So you can start playing.
Mm-hmm. And it also, something like that would give somebody the ability to work on building a deck for the first time.
Yep.
Go, okay, me as a veteran player thought out all of these cards and the possibilities of what they could do together. Let's see what you do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, buy singles.
Yes.
Don't buy boxes. It's really tempting. It's really fun. It's a lot of fun if you have that kind of disposable income.
Yes, but it's not feasible to make a cohesive deck.
And it's just not economically good.
No.
I mean, granted, as we said, you kind of want to eventually have a bunch of decks, but when you're first starting out, you kind of have to accept that, like, it's going to take a little while to progress.
Yeah.
I know from different experiences, not even necessarily related to Magic, because when you're new to a place, you want to be integrated, but you have to let time pass.
Baby steps.
So you actually are integrated and you have that knowledge and you have that thing. So, like, get the one precon, accept that maybe you want to play something else, but now's not the time. Just focus on that, get the understanding, and then when another precon comes out, get that next one.
Right.
Or get the one that was the old one that you wanted, because the new ones, they don't appeal to you, so I'll get the other one that I wanted.
Could be something when they, every set where they come out with 4 or 5, whatever precon commanders, say that's the time that you'll spend money on Magic and you'll get a new one. Because that's a pretty doable, every 2-3 months when they come out with a new set of the precon decks.
For now.
Right.
For now.
That's somewhat doable. Even somebody that might be a little tighter on cash may be able to scrounge up $60 to $80 every few months that they can spend on something.
Right. Like, you could potentially go, all right, I'll eat out a little bit less, or I won't get this.
Right. All of a sudden in a year, you've got 5 precon commander decks. Right. That you have a variety now of what you could play. And
then the last one is, I'm going to use this one word, but it's all Etsy. Get proxies. Like, nobody, like, generally speaking, commander players, they don't really care if it's the real card or not. And, like, now, if you're bringing power cards and your whole deck is just a proxy of all power cards, people might take a little bit of an issue with that.
Yes.
Not. I think part of it is because if I've spent the time to buy actual Magic cards, and then you're just going to get this whole. Sometimes proxies aren't necessarily free, so that's the
true.
Cost of it. But, like,
if you're talking a legit proxy, like an actual good proxy,
right?
If somebody writes down on a piece of cardboard and sticks it in a sleeve, that's a little more touchy on, like, all right, cool, you took 5 cards that are $1,000 and wrote their name on a piece of cardboard and threw it in your deck and said, well, that's my proxy. That might not fly as well.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of contradicts, a little bit contradicts what I'm saying here, because I do want people to play, and I think you should play the cards that speak to you.
Within reason.
Right. But as an aside, if you're a new player that hasn't engaged with anything, there are cards that will make people mad and not want to play against you. You'll find that out on your own, because different players have different things. Like, I had a Go deck and I took it apart because it wasn't a powerful deck, but people just hated it. Like, it got an unreasonable amount of hate.
People don't like not being able to make their own decisions.
Right. Yes, people don't
I personally have an issue with middle.
They don't like people don't like having their agency taken away from them, and they often don't like you touching your cards. Like, I'm actually more okay with it than a lot of people that I play with, but some part of me is like, I'm going to put that card in the corner upside down, and that's your card. You just remember that I have it right there for you to use whenever you need to. It depends on the price of the card. Like, if it's a valuable card, I'm like, just in case. If something happens to this card, I want it to be me, not you.
Exactly.
If it's a 25-cent card, it's like, yeah, sure. If you hit my sleeve and I don't have another sleeve, that might be a little bit. Yeah. That might be an eye roller, but.
For sure.
Yeah, any final thoughts? I think we covered pretty much everything.
I think we did. You hit kind of the main points. Start with arena, get precons, singles, and definitely something to add with the LGS, or go to whatever local card shop you have. Even the low level ones that are pretty small rinky dink card shops probably still have some level of people playing Magic in their store. So lean on those people. Most of the time, people are pretty friendly and welcoming with the Magic community, where they will kind of help get you into it. Lean on those people.
Yeah. Use
friends, acquaintances, whoever. Most of the time, there's not enough people that play Magic don't have enough people they play Magic with, so they're always looking to add somebody.
And if you're a seasoned player and you see new people come into your LGS, say hi. Learn their name. Get them comfortable, because it's intimidating.
Very much.
It's very intimidating to walk in there. First of all, you have a bunch of people who understand the game, of a game you don't understand.
You don't want to look like, especially I know me being when I started, I was 24. I still actually haven't played at Cooper's Cave. Not really particularly for any specific reason. A lot of it comes down to time. But the thought of going in and playing with people that have been playing for 20 years is scary. Like, looking like an idiot in front of people that have been playing for 15 years is not always fun.
And if you're a new player, like, maybe way in the back of their heads, they're like, oh, that's silly. But it's more like going to be a nostalgia where they're like, remembering when they made that mistake. Mm-hmm. People aren't going to judge you. It's as long as you don't come with a deck that wipes everybody's land but can't win.
Then they're just going to tell you not to show up anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they won't tell that, but like no one's going to go out of your way to play against you.
You'll probably pick up on that.
So that's the last piece of advice is like just be careful what kind of deck you end up playing. But and if you're a seasoned player, help out, because it can be intimidating.
For sure.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll see some more of these, and tune in again. Like, share, subscribe, comment. We have a Patreon, so please help support this so that we can do this all the time.
Thank you all.
See you later.